What this video reveals first is not Bryan Johnson. It reveals the audience. This is a room full of people who no longer want health advice as inspiration. They want it as systems engineering. And the episode understands that. It doesn't sell evening exercise, sleep, and resting heart rate as three separate wellness topics. It folds them into one governing question. What if the body is less a mystery than a dashboard, and the real work is learning which levers actually move the score? That is a much bigger claim than the title admits. The central thesis, as the conversation develops, is that lowering resting heart rate is not just a nice side effect of getting healthier. It may be one of the most useful summary signals of whether your entire lifestyle is coherent. That's a strong framing choice because it rescues the discussion from generic sleep hygiene chatter. Instead of saying, sleep matters, exercise matters, routines matter, the episode asks a more disciplined question. Which of these habits show up in a biomarker that actually integrates cardiovascular fitness, stress load, and recovery over time? That's where the video becomes genuinely valuable. It's trying to rank the importance of health behaviors by what they do to a measurable downstream signal. And the Whoop section is smarter than it looks because it doesn't just use a study as a permission slip for late workouts. It uses the study to narrow the question. Not, is evening exercise good or bad? But under what conditions does evening exercise meaningfully impair sleep, and for whom? That distinction matters a lot. Wellness content usually collapses probabilities into commandments. This episode does something more adult. It treats timing effects as a gradient problem, not a purity test. That's why the first chapter works so well. The study becomes a way to puncture one of the laziest genres in health media, the single-rule prohibition dressed up as science. But this is also where the episode's strongest virtue shows up. It refuses to stop at the study headline. The conversation keeps moving from population findings to behavioral architecture. If evening exercise can disrupt sleep in some contexts, then the useful question becomes, what are the variables you can still control? Intensity, timing, arousal, light exposure, food, the runway between workout and bed. That is a much more generous form of expertise. It doesn't just tell viewers what happened in a dataset. It teaches them how to think about confounding in their own life. That's a serious upgrade over the usual optimization content, which often mistakes a result for a rule. Now, the boldest move in the entire video is the one at 16 minutes, when resting heart rate starts to feel like the gravitational center of the episode. That's the controversial claim hiding in plain sight. Not just that resting heart rate matters, but that it may be among the cleanest practical indicators of whether your recovery, cardiovascular conditioning, and stress management are all moving in the right direction. I actually think the video earns the ambition of that claim better than most health podcasts would. Not because it proves resting heart rate is the single best biomarker in all contexts. It doesn't pretend to do that, but because it keeps showing why a metric becomes useful when it is responsive to ordinary life decisions viewers can actually make. The hidden assumption, and I mean that admiringly, is that a metric becomes culturally powerful when it is both biologically meaningful and behaviorally negotiable. That's the Johnson worldview in miniature. Blood chemistry is fascinating, but resting heart rate has a special rhetorical advantage. It lets the episode connect abstract longevity language to concrete daily rituals. Walk more, train consistently, sleep better, downshift earlier, reduce sympathetic overdrive. So the video is doing two things at once. On the surface, it's discussing heart rate. Underneath, it's making a case for a style of self-government where the body gives you a running vote on whether your habits are coherent. That's why the section on how to lower resting heart rate is the intellectual core of the whole episode. It could have turned into a shopping list. Instead, it works like a hierarchy of mechanisms. Aerobic conditioning matters because stroke volume and efficiency matter. Sleep matters because recovery matters. Stress matters because a chronically activated system writes itself into the pulse. The best health communication doesn't just hand out habits. It shows the chain of causation well enough that the habits stop feeling arbitrary. This episode is very good at that. It repeatedly translates recommendation into mechanism, and mechanism into a more realistic standard for behavior change. And then the wind-down routine chapter quietly changes the register of the conversation. Suddenly, the topic isn't fitness at all. It's civilizing your own nervous system. That's the part of the video I found most culturally interesting. A lot of performance culture treats the evening as dead time between productive acts. This episode treats it as an active physiological intervention. Your night routine is not decor around the real work. It is the real work if the goal is to lower baseline arousal and give sleep a fair chance to happen. That's a subtle but important correction to the macho version of optimization, where intensity gets all the glamour and downregulation is treated like an afterthought. Even the presentation choices serve that thesis. The calm multi-person setup, the kitchen table brightness, the unhurried back and forth between Bryan, Kate Tolo, and Dr. Mike Mallon. None of it is there to make the episode feel casual. It's there to make systems thinking feel domestic. The point is not that elite biomarker management belongs in a lab. The point is that it belongs in your Tuesday night. And that's why the video is more generous than it first appears. It takes a very optimization-coded subject and keeps dragging it back into the ordinary life of sleep timing, exercise scheduling, and what you do with the last hour before bed. There's also something refreshing about what the episode does not try to do. It doesn't promise a magical resting heart rate target that will redeem everybody. By the time they ask what counts as a good resting heart rate, the framing has already done the important work. The number matters, but the trajectory and the context matter more. That is a much healthier message than fetishizing a threshold. It turns the metric into a conversation with your physiology instead of a purity score. In a media environment full of absolutist health content, that restraint is not small. It's one of the most responsible things in the episode. So my bigger take is this. The video is arguing for a version of longevity culture that is less about heroic hacks and more about reducing friction between your stated values and your physiology. That's why it works. It takes a potentially sterile topic, resting heart rate, and turns it into a way of thinking about modern life itself. Overstimulated evenings, badly timed effort, fragmented recovery, and the strange fact that many adults are trying to brute force health while quietly sabotaging the conditions that make health possible. The strongest part of the argument is also its broadest ambition. It wants to teach viewers that the body keeps score of timing, not just intention. And in this case, the evidence, the structure, and the humility of the discussion make that ambition feel earned. That's why I came away unusually impressed. Not because the episode found one magical biomarker, but because it shows how to think with a biomarker without becoming misunderstood about it. That is rare. If you want more breakdowns of health media where the real question is not, is this true, but what kind of person is this argument trying to build? Stay close. I'd love to do the rest of this podcast universe.